So a trailer came out recently for the movie Gladiator 2, and to cut to the chase, that and the press coverage of the movie left me quite worried about this film. It did for me the exact opposite of the trailer for Doom the Dark Ages. And did Gladiator even need a sequel? Because I'm getting a bad feeling about this. In recent times, franchises just seem to get never-ending sequels until they've been run into the ground. They just carry on until the IP has been fully mined out, and I think it's fine, frankly, to just have standalone pieces of art. Nobody, as far as I can tell, is calling out for a Michelangelo's David 2, or a Mona Lisa 2 The Revenge of Mona Lisa. Gladiator 2 is also being directed by Ridley Scott, who did the first Gladiator, and is a director who's made a lot of films that I love, like Gladiator, like Blade Runner, like Alien. And this may be controversial, I think my favourite movie of his is Blade Runner. The problem is that Blade Runner was released in 1982. The last film of his I genuinely really liked, I think, was Gladiator, and that was released in the year 2000. And do you know what my least favourite part of the trailer is?
Hands on the mausoleum floor. Blood stains the Colosseum doors.
It's the rap music. Okay, who thought rap music was a good idea for a film set in ancient Rome? And even worse, it's Jay-Z and Kanye West. Music now just gets put in the least appropriate places. I suspect this one just got thrown in because the word Colosseum is in the lyrics to the song, and I remember a fast food ad in the UK that used the song Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division. And yeah, look at the lyrics to that song. It isn't a song about fast food. What music says ancient Rome less than rap music does? Possibly reggae? Can you imagine Maximus in the first Gladiator walking into the arena confidently to the tunes of Buffalo Soldier by Bob Marley? I can barely wait for the actual film. That from this I can only assume we'll have a touching love scene with the background song WAP by Cardi B. I think I've found a real new appreciation for film music in reviewing things for this channel, and it was the movie Big Trouble in Little China that did it, I think. Because when done well, film music can do so much to lift a film as a piece of art. I love what John Carpenter does with that film, because the thing that comes to mind that's similar for me to Big Trouble is, of all things, and I know this sounds strange, Peter and the Wolf by Tchaikovsky. Because in that, the different characters are represented in musical form by different instruments. In Big Trouble, so much of who the characters are is delivered to the audience in musical form, and there are themes and motifs within the music to represent the characters and who they are to the audience, from the brash guitars we get when we first meet Jack Burton, that paint him as a no-nonsense all-American man, to the more sinister and mysterious tones of tracks like Here Come the Storms, for the arrival of the bad guys, the Three Storms. And in the final battle sequence we get the track The Great Arcade that features all of the characters and blends their themes together. Similarly, the Star Wars films are lifted so much by the John Williams music. Up until thinking about that, I'd really started to hate music in TV and film, because if the music doesn't fit, as now it frequently seems not to, it can make the film worse. Much worse. Can you imagine it in the movie Halloween if you had Michael Myers stalking some young person, all to the music yakety sax? It would be horribly discordant with the atmosphere that the film required. It would effectively destroy the film. And that's what I feel they've done with this trailer by setting it to rap music, where what it probably needed was choir music, or something more period appropriate, maybe in Latin. The music just doesn't fit the setting. Now last week I had a look at the just released series, let's call it Those About to Cry, and that was set in ancient Rome as well, and despite overall giving that show quite a generous review, one of the things I knocked it for was the lack of historical accuracy, despite it having a historical advisor called Alexander Mariotti, who the makers of the series seem to have pretty much ignored while they worked on it. For Gladiator 2, they also seem to have had a historical advisor called, let's see now, his name was Alexander Mariotti, who the makers of the film also seem to have ignored. What a job that guy has got. He tells them everything historically wrong with their film or series, and then they ignore him. I hope he gets paid well, because that sounds harrowing. I've had jobs like that. The trailer is only a few minutes long and it's action-packed, but there appears to be quite a lot wrong with it historically. For example, here there's a depiction of a naumachia, a recreation of a sea battle in the Flavian Amphitheatre or Colosseum, which supposedly did happen in history. They really did flood the Colosseum on occasions. It's just that this film is set during the reign of the Emperor Caracalla, and the Romans had supposedly stopped doing naumachia over 100 years before this film is set, because in the meantime they'd built tunnels under the Colosseum that would have flooded if they'd tried, and they also supposedly only ever used small prop boats for it when they did it, which doesn't seem to be what the film is depicting at all. And the idea that the Romans would supply people in the arena with crossbows to just take a shot at the emperor seems laughably unfeasible. Maria Wyke, a professor of Latin at University College London, in this article also seems to somehow doubt the historical accuracy of a gladiator riding a saddled battle rhino into the Colosseum. Whoever would have guessed that wasn't historically accurate? It also features a scene of a Roman fleet supposedly attacking Numidia, which must have come as a shock to Numidia, which it seems had been a Roman province for several hundred years at that point. I can't even seem to find what battle this supposedly is, but the Roman forces are being led by Pedro Pascal's character in the film, called Marcus Acacius, who they seem to have made up for the film. So it probably wasn't based on a real event. There was this section from a story in The Guardian about the film. For the forthcoming Gladiator 2, which Scott is also directing, Mariotti is listed as a historical researcher. He had nothing to do with the director, however, and wasn't heavily involved with the film. Scott didn't want any historians on set, Mariotti says, because he had a huge falling out with many of them over his film Napoleon, when they criticised the director for that film's inaccuracies. Scott said, "Get a life." Mariotti always knew what he was letting yourself in for. In the interviews, he says, they were very clear that they didn't care about history. They didn't want it to be historical. It was Ridley's vision, and I'm fine with that. So yeah, don't count on anything in this movie being historically accurate, because it doesn't sound like Ridley Scott cares about that at all. After this trailer, I think it's safe to say I'm very worried about this film. Gladiator 2 is described on IMDb as, quote, after his home is conquered by the tyrannical emperors who now lead Rome, Lucius is forced to enter the Colosseum and must look to his past to find strength to return the glory of Rome to its people. So it sounds like it's riffing heavily off of the plot of the first movie, which suggests to me it isn't going to deliver much original, apart maybe from a saddled battle rhino, and overall the main cast looks a bit weaker to me than the original film. The cast for me is a bit of a mixed bag. Paul Mescal playing Lucius, I don't really know at all, and he's going to be doing essentially the Russell Crowe role, so those are some big shoes to fill. I've really soured on Pedro Pascal after The Mandalorian, Kingsman 2: The Golden Circle, Wonder Woman 1984. I'm not sure I've really enjoyed his work since Game of Thrones, and again that was 10 years ago. And he's going to be doing a role similar to that of Joaquin Phoenix. Not his real name, you know. His real name was supposedly Joaquin Raphael Bottom. But at the same time, I'll be shocked if we don't get good performances from Derek Jacobi, Peter Mensa, Denzel Washington and Connie Nielsen. The inclusion of Denzel Washington as Macrinus is also a bit of a strange one, because the real historical man Macrinus became a Roman emperor and was born in a Roman province in what is now Algeria, supposedly from a Berber family, and yet again I've seen quite a few Algerians posting online irate at Hollywood, once again rewriting another country's history and swapping out one of their people for an African American. It's a tricky one, because Hollywood is hardly awash with experienced Berber actors to do the role.
I remember my grandmother saying to me, I don't care what they tell you in school, Cleopatra was black.
That appears to be the level of research that goes into many modern Hollywood productions. So yes, that's why this trailer has left me worried, and like this film may be one to miss when it hits cinemas. I'd wait for reviews before paying out cinema prices for this one. I've done less videos than usual this week because instead of making videos, I spent the time picking blackberries. I did this because YouTube doesn't really pay me. So if I make videos or not, I get no money from YouTube either way. But this way, I have blackberries, and blackberries are great. Well, if they're properly ripe they are. If they aren't, the sourness will leave you making this face. They're also really good for you. If you're trying to lose weight or improve your health, try blackberries. They're a lot like pears in that a good pear will be among the nicest things you've ever had in your mouth, whereas a bad pear, which seem to be what I normally get, tastes like a slightly pear-flavoured piece of sedimentary rock. But never mind that right now. I have loads more videos that you could be watching.
Of course!
If you only knew the power of one, the power of two, the power of many.